Welcome, everybody. We are very, very glad that you are with us tonight. Sorry for the delay. We were waiting for all of our panel to get here, and sometimes life happens, but that's okay. We're all here now. And so we'll go ahead and get this show on the road. So, first and foremost, my name is John Anderson. I am Director of Media for NFOA. We've got a couple people that you're used to seeing by now on these online town hall meetings with us. First and foremost, directly, if you're watching the screen, directly to the right of me, we have got one of our volunteers, Dick Clark, is with us. How you doing, sir?
How are you?
Glad to have you along tonight. And then we've got our faithful leader, fearless leader, NFOA President Trish Harold is here too. How are you?
I'm doing really well. Good.
Awesome.
Been a good
All
night.
right. So my voice is not what it needs to be. I'm fighting sinus gunk, and it's going into my chest where it usually hangs around for a couple months. So I will do as little talking tonight as I can get away with. The good news is I'm not the guy that knows stuff, and that's why Dick is here tonight. So,
Well,
excuse me. So the reason that we're having this town hall is because a few days ago, Senator Brewer introduced a bill that was given the number LB 773. And that would allow for carrying a concealed handgun without a permit for non-prohibited individuals. And there's going to be a little bit different process this year, the way I understand it, for those of you that cannot come to Lincoln and be there in person for the hearing. And that's already been scheduled, so we'll talk about that here in a minute too. But before we get into any of this, Trish, do we have anything that we need to go over before we kind of turn things over to Dick and just let him explain?
Well, we're really glad to have you here with us, Dick Clark. It's so important for us to advance education across the state of Nebraska to ensure that people feel that they know the correct process for making their voices heard. This particular bill has been a priority for our membership for several years. Yeah. And we truly, truly admire the dedication that Senator Brewer and his team and all of those who are signing on to this bill as sponsors and co-sponsors have put into making our efforts to get constitutional carry passed in our state. So I first wanted to thank everyone on the team for that. And then just, at the end of the meeting, we'll talk about, what NFOA is doing for next week and for this weekend. And we'll just go ahead and hand it over to Dick and get started.
All right.
Very good. So, as you said, LB 773 is a bill about permitless carry. And I think Senator Brewer's conviction on this point, I mean, you can't find a bigger gun guy maybe in the world, certainly not in the legislature, than Senator Brewer. And the core principle here is you shouldn't have to pay a fee to exercise your civil rights. And so we're still working out some of the details, frankly, with a lot of different stakeholders. And there may be some amendments that fine tune some details. But the core of this bill is just that civil right ought to be respected. The Second Amendment, the right to keep and bear arms. It's the first on the list here in Nebraska's Constitution. And so when we go to advocate for this bill, and I can't tell any person watching this video what their perspective is on this bill because you've all got different lived experiences, but that's what makes hearings and what makes other public input valuable in the legislative process. You have folks who are going to be sitting on the Judiciary Committee hearing this bill next week, and that's going to be the only bill up that afternoon. It's the second hearing of the Judiciary Committee of the whole year. And that's a little different. Okay. We're used to having good pro-gun bills kind of set to the back of the calendar. But because Senator Brewer used his one individual priority designation on this bill and did it on the first day, he was able to use the rules to have an early hearing set. So that gives us many more options on what can happen with this bill, how we can get to success with this bill. But the first step is this hearing that is this next Thursday, January 20th at 1:30 in the afternoon. And I'm not going to tell anybody listening to this video you shouldn't come to the hearing. But what I do want you to know is the most effective way to get your thoughts in front of a senator, maybe not just in that hearing room, but in the larger unicameral. And this has to do with a new process that really is the fruit of the whole pandemic, all the fears associated with that. And really the legislature and the speaker tried to figure out ways that people could get their voice heard, but that did not have the ability or did not want to choose to go into the hearing room. And so what they did was they developed this online comment system. And it's not comments where people can comment with each other. It doesn't turn into that kind of comment section. But the idea was you can add a comment, you can indicate who your senator is, right, where you live, which district you're in. And so senators could go and click through in that system and sort of discover what their constituents are saying about a bill. And in fact, any member of the legislature can just go through the internal network at the legislature at the Capitol in that physical building called Uninet. And they can actually log in and see everybody's comments, or they can sort by district and so on. And there were various other ways that we could submit comments either to a committee or the legislature. One was this written statement that you could physically drop off. Then there were people sending emails to clerks of the committee or to individual senators asking for it to be included. And it was just very messy. And so they have improved, in my opinion, the process a little bit. And I want to show you how you can submit a position letter, because what you may choose to do, and you're going to have to decide if this is the right strategy for you or not, as an individual who cares about this and wants to be heard. You can show up and you can testify in person. That's time limited. And there's sort of a overall limit on how long they're going to sit there before the chairman just says we have to close this hearing. Now, given that we're the only thing that day, he's going to let it ride, I think, and have it pretty wide open for people to talk. But not all of us love public speaking. And so also you might want to have more detail than you can fit into a 3-minute or 5-minute window live in the chair. And so let me share my screen here. And I will see. All right. Okay, here we go. So here you see the committee hearings for the day that we're talking about. And so the government committee has several bills. Our vice chair will have to be running that committee hearing because Tom will be someplace else, like in our gun hearing. HHS has a few bills. And here we see judiciary, and we're the only thing on the agenda for that day. So if we go, and by the way, I'm just at nebraskalegislature.gov. And so whether you're going to the calendar and clicking on the hearing schedule, or you just click at bills and laws over here, what you're looking for is LB 773. And so when that comes up, what you can see now is besides all these different updates about who's a co-sponsor of the bill and where it's been referred and what date has been noticed for the hearing, we can also see this button in the middle, submit comments online for LB 773. Now this looks like last year's comments function, and it sort of is, but what they have done now, and I have to say I understand this rule for participation. What I can do now is I can click include comment in the hearing record. So instead of just being sort of the bathroom wall where senators can come look and see people's ideas, you can actually share this comment, and it will be part of that committee file that ends up in the clerk's office, and it doesn't just disappear down the memory hole after the session. It becomes part of that committee record. And I know that our clerk, which is a different committee, the government committee, is printing out all of the comments that are submitted that indicate they are to be included for comment in the hearing record, and those will be distributed to our senators and our committee for each hearing, or at least be available to them in the Google Drive folder that we use to share committee documents. And I used to work with the committee clerk in the Judiciary Committee. She's very, very professional, and I expect that she'll probably make sure her committee members are getting these comments as well, because she has to prepare that for her record that she'll turn in anyway. So you can go in here, back to the screen, you can go in here, make sure that you do say include comment in the hearing record. And now you can only do that for a limited amount of time, okay? It just became possible because they noticed the hearing, so that turned this function on, okay? And now it's going to end. You can't submit it for the hearing record after 24 hours before the hearing, okay? And the reason for that is that gives the clerk an opportunity to get things in the right place so the senators have that as part of their hearing binder or in their Google Drive folder for that hearing. So you go in, you include your information. You do have to provide an email address where a confirmation gets sent, and that's so people can't just go in and spam the system without some kind of a break on it. And there is the option to put in your district. And you can look that up elsewhere on the Nebraska legislature website. There is also the option you can just enter 0, so it won't attach you to a district. And they actually provided that mostly for state agencies and lobbyists who don't, they might live in a district, but that has nothing to do with what they're testifying on a bill about or submitting comment on a bill about. So you just put 0, and that won't associate you with a senator. Doesn't really matter either way, but senators do look at stuff coming from their district. So I would encourage you to probably input the correct district there. But you'd be representing yourself unless you're a registered lobbyist, okay? And proponent is where you're going to click if you're a supporter of the bill. And then, of course, you've got the opportunity to say, no, actually, I'm an opponent, or no, I'm neutral, and just wanted to get my thoughts out there. There's a 500-word limit on this option. For some of us, no big deal. That's plenty. For some of us wordy lawyers, that might feel like just a real burden, a great constraint on our creative enjoyment of the process. But in any case, this is a way that's far more streamlined, in my opinion, and more reliable way to get stuff into the committee record, even if you cannot physically appear at the hearing, or even if you do want to appear at the hearing, but you aren't going to go up and testify. And there's always also the option when you go to a hearing, you pick up a testifier sheet if you're actually going to go up to the microphone and give some testimony. But there's also a clipboard or some sort of a sign-in pad where you can sign in as a proponent or opponent or neutral. So there's some record that you were at the hearing, even if you don't testify. But we just wanted people to know that this is now really a convenient option where from home you can get this submitted and you don't just have to go digging around for the right email address. It's going to get directed to the right place. So to me, that's an improvement. I will tell you, when it comes to the committee hearing, and I'm going to unshare my screen here because we're just kind of staring at the wall looking at the same thing. When it comes to the committee hearing, on the one hand, from 1:30 until quitting time is our time. Okay, there are no other bills on the agenda. Every senator who walks in that hearing room understands that, whether they're going to leave early or not, this hearing is only about one bill today. Nobody's waiting in the wings to get to what they've got coming next. On the other hand, let's be good about persuasion. And of course, it goes without saying, and NFOA is always excellent on this, but respectful, informed, information-packed, and sharing maybe your life perspective on why you're interested in this and giving them something else to understand about the bill other than what they've heard the previous testifier talk about. And I really would emphasize that, because insofar as we might have a couple of folks who are on the fence, and I'm telling you, we're asking everybody for their vote. We're not writing anybody off on this bill. But insofar as they're on the fence, we want them to receive useful information, but not get it 17 times on the exact same, point, exact same data. And then, it could turn somebody off at a point, is what I'm trying to say. I will tell you, we're going to have some really fantastic testifiers that we've asked to come. I'm not going to go into who that might be, but there'll be some people from out of state. There will be some people that have an intimate understanding of Nebraska's concealed handgun permit program from the inside. And of course, Senator Brewer will be kicking the whole thing off. But I would just encourage you to think through how you can, if you're going to testify at the hearing, how you can bring that different perspective that makes your comment a helpful addition. And also consider coming out, showing your support. But, discretion's the better part of valor, and not everybody gets to be a lawyer and just listen to themselves talk, right? So anyway, I'm happy to answer any questions. And I see that we have a few popping up on the side here.
We do have a few real quick. If 500 words is not enough, can there be more than one submission per person, or is that it?
I believe it is limited to one submission for that email address on that bill. I believe that's correct. Now, if there was something else you wanted to get to the committee, again, it's always okay to email individual senators, and it's always okay to send something to the committee clerk saying, asking if she might, distribute it to the committee. Okay. But that's what I would say for something that goes beyond that. Or handouts are still okay. So if you're coming and you're giving in-person testimony, this 500-word limit, that's just for the online system. That's not some kind of a requirement for anything you might hand out when you come up to testify.
So for those of you that are maybe out in the Panhandle and you can't make that drive down to Lincoln next Thursday, the 20th, then yeah, you need to be able to get your thoughts into 500 words or less, but sometimes less is more. Say what you need to say and say it well. And sometimes you don't need a whole bunch of words to do that either. Not everybody's a lawyer like Dick is.
Yeah, we don't get paid by the word, but it seems like it sometimes.
All right.
Let me look over here on the some of these comments. Well, Trish, they're from you, actually. Okay. So
that's a long-winded one. I don't know.
No, it's okay. So the question is, why don't we just delete the statute that makes this a crime? And I have nerded out on this for long enough to where I've gone back and I found the original, concealed weapon criminal statute in Nebraska. And some of you may know that the original crime wasn't carrying a concealed weapon. It was carrying a concealed weapon with intent to commit a crime. Mm-hmm. And so the idea was if you were up to something, they could maybe get you for the up to something, but then they also get you for being extra sneaky and dangerous while you were up to something. Okay. And it was in the 1800s, they wouldn't have called it a stackable offense, but that's kind of what it is, right? Slightly different elements. Another thing you can throw on the bad guy. Then that changed sometime between the late 1800s and, the mid 20th century. And it just became, you're committing a criminal act unless you're within one of these exceptions, right? And of course, the one that we all use if we're permit holders is the exception for a holder of a valid concealed handgun permit. There's also that very nebulous affirmative defense exception in the concealed weapon statute. I would not stake any kind of thing, any value, including my future liberty, on getting that one right and counting on that as your defense. So get the permit for right now anyway. But the reason is we didn't want to have more policy arguments than necessary to talk about not having to get a permit before you exercise your rights. And we felt like the fact that there's this misdemeanor first offense, class 4 felony, second offense crime that would only apply to felons or other prohibited persons, we didn't really want to have the policy argument about how severely should we punish, murderers out on parole who are caught with a gun or something like that. Because that's what they're going to talk about at the committee. But what we wanted to make clear is that this just doesn't apply to people who aren't prohibited from having a gun. If you can legally possess a gun in the state of Nebraska, we think that you should be able to carry it, again, as Trish has often demonstrated, with the coat back or the coat forward, right? There can be this piece of fabric, my outer layer of clothing over the gun, and Tina Turner will not climb atop the Thunderdome just because that's happened, right? So we've had a lot of really productive conversations with people when we helped them understand that in a lot of ways, this is one of the most modest, if you want to call it constitutional carry or permitless carry bills that have been introduced, in part because Nebraska already has had a fairly restrictive concealed handgun permit system and sort of this constellation of crimes that you can be charged with once you're a permit holder, right? Like failure to inform a police officer, or, carrying in a circumstance where you've consumed alcohol or any previously, consumed controlled substance, or just a location violation, right? And so those are crimes you can't be convicted of unless you have a concealed handgun permit. And so once we've started explaining to people, hey, it's actually pretty strict, guys, and now this would apply to everyone carrying concealed. And in fact, everybody would have the duty to inform now, including a whole population that currently can't legally do it. And you can't compel them to tell you, because that would be compelled confession. It would be a violation of the Fifth Amendment, right? The law can't tell people to confess to crimes. If it's no longer a crime to carry a concealed weapon, technically everybody in the car now, if they're carrying, is going to have a duty to disclose. So in our view, that promotes officer safety, and it gets people used to just telling the truth about what's going on when a cop pulls them over. We've had some very productive meetings with law enforcement and both people who work inside the program at State Patrol. And of course, having the governor on your side promotes those conversations. But honestly, even in the past, my dealings with those guys in the permit office have been pretty positive. And we've had very positive conversations with local cops. And I think the cops in the city are the ones that have the greatest reservations, and across the rest of the state, I doubt you could find somebody who opposes it. Truly. I think sheriffs, including Senator Brewer's brother, who is the sheriff of Sheridan County, overwhelmingly support the bill once they learn more about it and understand what's actually in it. But yeah, that's the reason why we kept it in there, Trish, is we didn't want to have the why are you treating felons caught with a concealed weapon differently thing, because really we are trying to focus on people who have the right to have the gun in the first place under other laws, right, under state and federal laws.
That's an excellent, a perfectly excellent explanation. Really makes more sense now that when we look at how all the other statutes are interrelated.
Yeah, and as you rightly pointed out, yeah, there's a different section that already makes it a crime for a person who's prohibited from having firearms to have that firearm or to have ammunition, and there's a federal law for that, 18 U.S.C. 922. And then there are state law analogs to that here in Nebraska. And we really intended to just sort of keep it flat across the board. And if you couldn't have a gun before, we're not changing who can get a gun. We're just saying that if you've already legally got one, we shouldn't act like it's some immoral, blameworthy thing to carry it in the way that normal civilized people carry their gun in 2022 most of the time, is concealed. So.
Awesome.
Okay, so just for clarification, we've got a comment that I want to bring up here, because this is something that is very, very important that we touch on here. Aaron says you've been getting a lot of comments, people saying if we get rid of the CCW, then people won't know if they're legal enough to carry, which this does not actually get rid of what is now called a CHP. But
Right.
would you explain what the bill does and what the bill doesn't do?
Yeah. So first off, we're doing what most other states have done when they have passed constitutional carry legislation. We are not deleting the permit program from the statute book. The permit program at State Patrol will continue to exist. And right now you get a lot of states in terms of reciprocity when you travel with a Nebraska concealed handgun permit. And the wonderful thing about constitutional carry is that once you uncouple my right to carry in my home state, my civil right, from the quality of my state's permit, you can actually change the permit standards so that it is accepted in more states, thus making it more valuable for the people who care about that reciprocity issue. And so what we have seen in other states, including notably Wyoming, they now issue more concealed handgun permits per year than they did before they went constitutional carry. And part of that is the quality of their permit improved. You can also look to South Dakota, where they have the enhanced permit program. And that was something that was designed around making it travel better, right? And making it a Brady permit where you can use it to prove a background check has occurred, and you don't have to get a point of sale background check performed when you buy a gun. And so I think that we can improve the quality of the curriculum ultimately for the concealed handgun permit. And also, by the way, we can have people who maybe can only take one class. Maybe they pick the training they think is going to be the best training that's relevant to them. And, we had a college professor who's didn't seem too gun friendly, but reached out to our office, and he had all these concerns about the bill. He's a retired professor from UNL. He was very friendly on the phone. And I was talking to him. I said, Professor, I just want to ask you a question. You're a lifelong educator, and there's two different classes you're teaching, okay? The first class is a class where the curriculum and the syllabus were written by some wonk in a bureaucratic basement, and you just have to teach off of his syllabus no matter what, or else it can't be called this class. And now the second class is a class that, based on your training and experience, you're going to develop the syllabus. You're going to teach to your strengths, to what you think you're best at teaching. Now, which of those classes would you recommend I sign up for, Professor? And that's the beauty of a bill like this, is it really does, for people who are on the more limited end of the resource spectrum and don't have money to be splashed around to go take a class every month. If they could take one class, now maybe it can be a class that's squarely on what they need. And I think that's better, and it makes us safer, and it makes us more responsible gun owners. And, there's a lot of trainers out there who are for this bill, and I want to reassure them, and I know I'm talking to some of them, looking at some of them on the screen right now, right, Trish?
Yeah.
I think training is going to go up. I think this is going to drive interest in what it means to be a responsible gun owner in Nebraska. And I want people to continue to walk away from that training, frankly, feeling the weight of the responsibility of carrying, because it is. And we all take that seriously as people who carry, and we should. And that's what I try to impart when I teach the legal seminars, in some of the same rooms that you guys teach yours in. But this bill is not about the Wild West. It's not about yahoos, running around being irresponsible. It's just, they used to require that you take a test to vote in the South. And that's where I'm from, Louisiana and Alabama. And here's the thing. Casting an uninformed vote is dangerous. Absolutely true. But the problem is, when you allow the government to test you before you exercise your civil rights, it's just the same problem as a poll tax. It's just another way to trip people up and keep them from having their civil rights. Mm-hmm. And this is a principled thing. It's not anti-training. It's not even really anti-background checks, because we think, like I said, that those will probably increase as more people get engaged on this. It's just about the government not finding ways to say, yeah, that's in the Constitution, but.
Right. So what's really interesting, Dick, and thank you for talking about that. Training is really important to me, right? And
yes.
Just from my own personal experience, obviously I'm the president of NFOA, so Second Amendment rights are essential to me. But at the same time, I am a professional instructor. I mean, that's what I've done for the last, 30 years, and I started when I was 10. So teaching, education, training, super important. And so, I do teach concealed carry, and I do teach defensive skill sets, and I teach, situational awareness and de-escalation and use of non-lethal forms of self-defense, and really the gamut. And one of the things that I, pondered just personally is, how is this going to impact the training industry and people's ability to access training? And I will second your position. What I have found in constitutional carry states is, instead of being relegated to the Nebraska State Patrol's mandated curriculum, which I have made as good as I can given the constraints of that the material, I would be able to create very targeted seminars on skill sets that individuals need based on their own assessed needs, right? So whether it's basic fundamentals of handgun manipulation and holster and concealed carry skills. Of course, people want to be lawful and they want to understand how to work within the law. So it could be a totally dedicated seminar to just the laws of force in our state, so that they can act within the constraints of the law and be responsible gun owners and responsible first responders. And so what I have found is that instructors like myself who do teach the formal concealed carry course just basically are able to diversify their offerings. They get larger audiences, larger amounts of students, because they're not under the constraints of the mandated curriculum. Mm-hmm. And at the same time, they're able to continue teaching the state mandated material for those who wish to have a permit for reciprocity. So I second that. I think it provides a lot more options and opportunities than most people would assume.
Oh, that's right. Well, and when I've talked to police or anybody who's concerned about how this bill turns into reality and what happens after that, I've said, look, I know groups like NFOA, and I've talked to folks at NRA who take very seriously the idea that they can be the ones, that we can all be the ones who help educate people, because whether this bill passes or not, it is always better for me as a gun owner and for you as gun owners when the other people who are out there also as gun owners are responsible and know what it means to be responsible, right? And so that is something that protects this liberty in a practical way for all of us, and keeps everybody safer. And none of us wants to be in that circumstance where we're negligent and we hurt somebody or something because of our negligence. And frankly, I can tell you, as an attorney who helps gun owners. I've handled quite a few cases where there's a hole in the wall that had consequences, or a hole in the wall that turned into broken glass in the neighbor's kitchen while they were eating supper, or something really exciting like that. And so we all want to be safe gun owners, and we want to own every projectile we send, because we've got to. But there were a couple of I saw some questions about who I was.
Real quick too, if you're just joining us, or if you're joining us late, our guest is Dick Clark, who is an attorney in Lincoln. Dick works with U.S. Law Shield, does a lot of firearms law in his private practice, also works in the Capitol building in Senator Brewer's office, and you were the one who primarily drafted LB 773. Is that correct?
That's correct.
So when it comes to the bill, Dick knows every word because he's the one that typed them in. And I do apologize that we can't just interrupt people talking to get to every question as soon as they're asked out in the chat. We do ask that you keep your comments civil and refrain from foul language, or you will be kicked out. And please be patient with us, because again, just because your question didn't get answered yet doesn't mean I'm going to just walk all over the person talking, cut them off to answer your question. So please just be civil, and we'll try to get to as many of you as we can, I promise. But again, we can't cut people off just because another question came in there. So one question that came in quite a while ago that I did want to get to, where'd this go to? Are there any senators on the committee that we need to try to focus on convincing more than others?
Well, hope springs eternal. I can tell you that we've got some co-sponsors on the committee, and we've got some people who have actively already been working against the bill. And I heard a funny thing. Basically, we've got senators that are coming out to some different lobbyists that represent some of the law enforcement groups, some of the other groups, and they're threatening them. They're saying, "Don't you guys dare support that constitutional carry bill." I mean, that's what's going on right now. There's the anti-gun senators, and I'm not even going to list them, but you could guess them based on prior history, I think, or your guess probably wouldn't be too far off, who are lobbying the lobbyists, trying to keep them from helping the other side in this fight, because this is one of their top priorities, to stop this bill. And so you're asking about the members of the Judiciary Committee, and I'm just clicking over to the list just to make sure I've got the right list. So we have at least a couple of people on the committee who are co-sponsors of the bill. Tom Brandt and Julie Slama. Okay. And Senator Slama is actually someone who has invited one of the people who's going to come in from out of state to talk to the committee during the hearing next week. But I think that, as far as the rest of the committee who haven't already signed on to the bill, I think Suzanne Geist, I think she is open-minded to the bill. I am hopeful that she'll be able to support the bill when it comes to a vote on the floor. But that leaves some folks still on the fence. Like I think Senator DeBoer may need to hear some additional perspectives from folks that can help her kind of get the contours of this thing and maybe arrive at a different conclusion. I think right now she's not super thrilled about the bill. I think Senator McKinney is somebody who is open to being persuaded by the side with the best evidence on this bill. I really like Senator Patty Pansingbrook on a personal level. She's a very pleasant person. I think it's unlikely that she'll be persuaded to support this bill. And in the past, she has introduced anti-gun legislation and has expressed concern about people carrying firearms. Senator Moorfeld has expressed concern about the bill, and I know he's been working against it behind the scenes. And I don't think Senator Lathrop much likes the bill. So that's just the rundown. Every one of them is worth an attempt at persuasion, because every one of them has a vote on the board. And, I'm the dewy-eyed optimist that thinks that if I'm stuck in an elevator with somebody long enough, maybe we'll come out agreeing on more stuff than we got in agreeing on. So it's worth a try. And, that showing a little respect to the other side pays dividends sometimes. So.
Absolutely. I would agree with that too.
Yeah.
What else have I missed for questions that we didn't get to? I know we lost a few of them, or I lost a few of them in the shuffle here. Yeah. A few of them are comments, not so much questions.
I see one that's unrelated to all of this, except for it points out why we need constitutional carry. Gito 463 is asking if he forgets his wallet with his actual physical permit at home, is he good to conceal carry? As I read the statute, I think you have to be able to present both your concealed handgun permit and either a driver's license or a state ID under the statute to be safe. I think there's a concern that you could get in trouble otherwise. I have not had a case where those were the facts, so I'm speculating.
So even without the need for a CHP, then you would still need some sort of ID just to prove you are who you say you are, even, and to prove that you're not a prohibited individual.
Well, no. So under constitutional carry, this wouldn't be an issue, and that's why
I think that's what he's asking. Is
no. So under constitutional carry, I'm sorry, I misread his question. That's right. Under constitutional carry, you wouldn't have to worry about, I physically left my permission slip from government at home. Okay. Right. You wouldn't have to prove the negative that you're not a prohibited person. I'm sorry, I misread the question.
Okay, very good. That's music to my ears.
Yeah, the government's got the burden of proving that you've committed a criminal act.
We had a comment or a question on the YouTube side. Where can a person read the bill? Scroll up to the top of the live chat comments. I did put in fact, I should pin that. Let's just pin that message there. It is pinned at the top of the live chat now on the YouTube side. So you can get to the link to read the text of the bill. Click on the word introduced, and you'll get to the text of the bill.
And
it's 29 pages. I've got it here.
Yeah. If you're just out in the world and don't see this link or something that he's posted, you can just go to nebraskalegislature.gov and either search by the bill number, if you can remember it, or there's actually a way to search by introducer. And again, it was introduced by Tom Brewer. So,
you know what, just to be safe, let's just go ahead and repost that link on YouTube and Facebook, both for everybody. There is the link to view the bill.
All right.
All right. So anybody have any other questions as far as the actual what LB 773 would do, what it wouldn't do? I think we've covered most everything. You guys have been helping me find these here. As far as what the bill actually does. There we go. So yeah, I got that pin now. All right. There are a couple things. I know somebody had asked me earlier in a private message if NFOA was going to be releasing any talking points. Now, we typically are very hesitant to do such a thing, just because when you are crafting your own statement, your own letter to go to the committee, we want that to be as personalized as can be. If we were to just make a carbon copy and everybody sign their name to it, it wouldn't have the weight. And there are many different people throughout the legislative processes that can tell you that when people open those, whether it's electronic or physically open that envelope, if they see that, it's just another one of these, it doesn't even get read in its entirety. It gets thrown on a pile. And so that's why we typically don't release a template or a list of talking points. But I do want to share one thing that's been weighing on me for quite a few weeks now, even before this bill was introduced. And I think it really applies here. We don't have to get a permission slip. We don't have to get a permit to exercise any of the other rights that are listed in the Bill of Rights to the Constitution. You don't need a permit to be able to speak your mind about the government without being locked up. You don't need a permit to exercise your right to not be forced to incriminate yourself. You don't need a permit to be exempt from an illegal search or seizure of your property. You shouldn't need a permit to exercise your right that it says shall not be infringed. Right now, we have a permit system that is required, which means that if I can afford such a thing, then I can exercise my right. If I can't afford to, then I guess I'm just out of luck, which really creates a caste system. a class system that we shouldn't have, especially not in Nebraska. And again, this is the right to keep and bear arms is listed in Article 1, Section 1 of our state constitution. So say this in your own words, but in my mind, if a right can't be exercised by everyone, then it's not a right at all. And we do have that right listed in both constitutions.
Yeah.
So I really think this is important. And I really think that when that is pointed out, I would love to see a senator try and run an end around that statement, that comment.
Mm-hmm.
And I'd love to see the mental gymnastics required to overcome such a hurdle as that. So put that, and that's going to be the only thing you're really going to get for talking points, guys.
Yeah.
But
let me interject a couple of things as I saw some comments going by. First off, somebody was asking about bringing a 4-year-old to the hearing. Kids are awesome. I got 3 of them. They're all a little bit older than that now. Youngest is 6. But here's what I'd say. There's no rule against taking your kid to the hearing. However, I promise you that the opposition to this bill is going to include at least a few people who are going to use very R-rated language in order to fully illustrate their disdain for the idea in the bill. And so just be advised that your kid will hear some very angry people using that kind of vocabulary. So, that parental guidance suggested, I guess, is the appropriate advice there. Your kid will be fine, though. I mean, other than that, it's not about the kid not being suitable for the room. It's the room maybe not being suitable for the kid. Other thing I wanted to mention, I think I saw somebody who was kind of trying to do a head count of, okay, how many committee members is that on the one side versus maybe who are leaning the other direction. I did want to remind people how we get the bill out of committee and what the path is to success if the committee digs its heels in and doesn't want to go along. So there's really a few different paths. The primary one, of course, that a bill normally takes is a majority of the committee votes on it when the chair has called an executive session of the committee. So that's a private meeting of the committee. There's still a public record created by it, but there's not people in the room to heckle them while they vote, basically. So they have a vote on a motion to advance a bill to general file. Often, but not always, there is an amendment that the committee wants to tack on to sort of tune up the bill on its journey to becoming a law. And then once that happens and it is referenced to general file, that means that the speaker now has the ability to put it on the agenda. Now, usually a bill has to be prioritized to be guaranteed a spot on the agenda, unless it's what we call a consent calendar bill that's so easy and boring that nobody even wants to talk about it and it just flies through. This bill, our constitutional carry bill, has been prioritized, was prioritized day one, although that wasn't read across in the journal until day 2. But it was the first new bill prioritized this year. And so we basically are guaranteed a spot on the floor agenda if this bill comes out of committee. Now, we were just doing math on our fingers and counting, okay, how many do we have on the one side? The answer is we don't have the majority right now unless some people can be persuaded, which we hope they can. But if they cannot be persuaded to support the bill coming out of committee, those people on that committee don't have the final say. The whole body of the legislature can check the work of the committee and say, we have committees to help divide up the labor and sort of filter out the bad ideas and send the good ones up and make them even better. But you got this one wrong, Judiciary Committee. And we're going to go ahead and place this one on general file. And we're just kind of going to go over your head on this one. And the whole body, by a majority, a 25 vote, can do that. Now, there's one other wrinkle. Committees don't just sit on bills or advance them. Sometimes
a template or a list of top.
Sometimes they actually kill bills through what's called an IPP, a motion to indefinitely postpone. Now, what that means is we can actually still have the fight on the floor. It just requires more senators to be successful. Instead of 25, you have to have 30 to revive a bill that has been killed by a committee. But they actually accelerate the process. Instead of having to wait 20 days to do a pull motion, that first kind of whole body oversight of the committee, then you can do it within those first 3 days after they've done that, if they actually try to kill the bill. So in some ways that will help us. I think we'll have 25 co-sponsors by the time we're having this conversation on the floor, and we may have more than that. And so I do think we have the votes to bring this to the floor of the legislature. And at the very least, we are going to have a record vote on this bill this year about where your Nebraska senator stands on your constitutional rights. And the governor has made very clear that if this bill makes it to his desk, he will sign it. And he did a town hall event with Senator Brewer back in December and went on the record saying that. So,
all right, real quick, great question from Aaron out there. If you make your comment online, but then you found out you can show up and make your statement, how do you let them know? Do you just show up and tell them that you already submitted one?
You could reference the fact that you have submitted, written testimony or a comment through the comment portal. I'm not sure that it's even necessary that you mention it. If you decide, hey, I submitted that comment, but now I just really want to show up and kind of share this story that I think they need to hear, just come to the hearing. It's fine. And the key thing, just make good use of your time. It's going to be limited. If you haven't done it before, sometimes when you go up there the first time and there's a light in front of you and then it turns yellow when you've only got a minute left, it can kind of stress you out. But just do your best. Just understand you don't have a whole lot of time to work with. So if you're like me and you talk too much, good luck. But if you can be succinct and to the point and punchy with what you're saying, and delivered in a respectful way, I think you can have an effect on people. And people remember good stories. And so if you've got that personal anecdote that helps convey your message, that's especially effective, I think. So,
is there a time limit for testimonies again this year like there was last year? Do we know
there
yet?
will be. I don't think that it's going to be as compressed as what Senator Lathrop has sometimes done in the past. I will tell you, it's really standard across many of the committees, at least those that get controversial bills. And our committee that I work on, the government committee, is this way. We run a light system, and basically when we get to that hearing room, the chairman looks at the room and says, hey, there's 100 people in here. I guess we better go to 3 minutes, not 5 minutes. We typically are either one or the other, though. 5 minutes, or if the room is really full so that everybody has a chance to at least speak a little bit, we'll move it down. And Senator Lathrop has taken that to a greater extreme in the past, and I think at one point went to 1 minute for a hearing. Mm-hmm. And
wow.
That's how you doing? Here's my name. See you later. About all I could get out in a minute, but you've already heard me talk for too long. So,
especially if you had a 5-minute presentation prepared. Yeah, that's so more to come, but be prepared to have to trim it. Maybe if enough of us show up, I honestly can't see that being a bad thing. If we get so many bodies in the hallway that day that they have to limit how long we can speak, then that's still a win, because that's showing how many Nebraskans showed up in support of such a bill.
It is, and it's impressive. And a couple of years ago, I think we had about 500 people in the hallways, and it was just stunning. And it was something that they still talk about to this day in the Capitol, and people remember it. And I think it is always great because of how respectful and orderly everybody on our side of the issue just always is. Senator Brewer takes great pleasure in saying that on days when we have these hearings, that the Capitol is the safest building in the state. So
it's true. It's true. Trish, do you want to go over a couple of the things that we always need to remind people on the day of testimony, as far as carrying firearms, things like that in the Capitol building?
Right. So if you're familiar with concealed carry laws, there is no concealed carry at the state capitol because of the fact that our Nebraska Supreme Court is co-located in that building. Open carry is permitted. Open carry has not been an issue in the past. We, of course, understand that in politics, there's optics, guys. And, when I'm out and about on my farm and I'm dealing with coyotes and whatever, I might have an AR on my back. But when I've carried at the Capitol, it's always been, my sidearm. And that tends to go over much better because it obviously shows what the average gun owner is going to do in our state. We're an open carry state. Open carry, most people open carry handguns. We know the media might show up, and the media looks for a certain niche look. And that niche look is perfectly welcome within the firearm community. But at the same time, those folks who are not familiar with us don't understand that we have just as much diversity in the firearm community as any other community. And so they'll try to find someone that sticks out somehow, and in an attempt to somewhat, besmirch us reputationally or whatever. So I recommend that. That's just the basics of understanding how the game works. None of us like playing this game, but it's what it is. Showing up early is good, especially with something as important as constitutional carry. I do expect the showing to be quite positive, and so that you can get in line, right? So as you proceed to enter the room, you're going to sign in. You're going to say that you're a proponent or an opponent or neutral, and then basically it is a first come, first serve sort of somewhat chaotic approach to getting to actually spend your 3 minutes or 5 minutes in the chair providing testimony. So we basically go one at a time. There's usually a chair that's designated the next person up. And we tend to move in the order of the folk closest to the committee go first, and then those in the rear. So if you want to get in and testify and then be able to leave, say you have some schedule constraints, it would be good to show up early so that you can get a seat. We've had, of course, many times where hearings where we have standing room only, or we're waiting outside in line to be able to come in and testify. And so for those folks that need to get in and get out, it's good to be early.
Quick question from Gito out there. If I typically carry concealed, is it considered unconcealed if I simply tuck my shirt behind my holster? Would that not be enough if it's still tucked into my waistband? It is. If any part of the firearm is visible, it's not concealed, correct?
That's right. However, of course, lawyers always have to follow up with, well, it depends. Because remember, so let's say you do that and you're standing up and you're outside of your vehicle. That's an open carried firearm, I think. But now you go and you sit and it's strong side inside the waistband, shirt's tucked in behind it, but now it's up between you and that pillar, that center console rather, in the middle of the car. No part of that gun is visible. It's not concealed by your clothing only, but it's partially concealed by your body and it's partially concealed by something else. I think you could be in trouble if you're trying to open carry, you don't have a concealed handgun permit, and that is how you're doing it. So just be aware of those situations where something you do is basically obstructing anyone's view of that firearm, because that could be considered concealed.
But inside the Capitol, as long as the grip is visible of the firearm, then it would still be considered open carry.
Yes, it would. Yes, it would. Some part of the firearm is visible. Now, the guys, there's two different kinds of Capitol security. There's Capitol security that is more of the we need to call the tow company, or there's a spill on aisle 3 type security. They're very fine people. And then there's state patrol, like sworn officers who are there, who are, certified law enforcement officials and are carrying guns and handcuffs and stuff. And what happened a couple of years ago when we had 500 people there, and I think there were 2 guys that had the long guns who were open carrying. There might've been some more people with handguns. But basically what they did is they just said, well, each of you guys now have a personal manservant in uniform. And I don't think they got bothered or anything, but they just sort of had a person assigned to them. And there wasn't ever an issue, and nobody pointed anything at anybody, I don't think. And those guys are gun guys, those cops are. And so it's not like they were, on the anti side, but they're just like, hey, something goes down, we're going to take care of it real quick as well. And so that's fine. But I think overall they support pretty much what we support, and they're just there to provide security. And, like Trish was saying, probably there won't be any extended medium range gun battles in the Capitol. And so, a sidearm might be enough to get you to the outer limit of what would be self-defense in that environment if you're going to open carry. And so, optics matter too. We're not doing this for the people in the hearing, right? We're not doing this for these senators on this committee. Mm-hmm. We're doing this because we care about liberty. And so when you're thinking about how to approach this, I absolutely get the impulse of, hey, you guys already ought to support my liberty, and I'm indignant that you don't. But let's remember that not everybody has heard the thing that persuaded you to care about this freedom. And we can be good stewards of the right by promoting it in a way that other people can receive it. So
And just please, all of you out there that are listening right now, watching right now, no matter when you're listening or watching, because this will be available on replay as well. If you choose to open carry at the hearing, be responsible. That's all we're going to ask. Be responsible, be safe. You're grown-ups. This bill is about letting grown-ups make grown-up decisions and not needing somebody to supervise them.
Mm-hmm.
Prove that we can do it, guys. That's all we ask. Be responsible, be safe, be smart about it. Sometimes discretion is the better part of valor. So just remember that.
John, I saw a question from somebody who I think might have checked in a little bit later, but I just wanted to reiterate the new way and the only way to get a letter submitted to the committee for the committee record is through this online submission portal. So you absolutely can still email the committee, email the members, but if you wanted to include it in the official record, do use the online portal where it'll say submit comments online for LB 773 on that bill page.
And if you're joining us late and you missed the earlier segment where we screen shared and Dick actually showed the process and the form on the screen, then please, when this is over, go back and rewatch it. And you can actually see what you'll need to do in order to submit that, because the only way now to submit those, aside from being in person, is to go through the comment portal. And that is explained earlier in this presentation. So please go back and watch it again if you need to.
Yeah, and that really is about committee clerks not having to go out and search in 3 different email accounts to try to find letters that somebody thought they were submitting to the right email address. And the intent of that is very good. It's Mike Hilger's idea, is to really it's an efficiency measure to this procedure of getting the thoughts of the people into the hands of the committee. And so I think it's going to work well, but just understand this is the first year we've done it this way. And I mean, I saw changes that were implemented in the form just since last week when we had a meeting on it. So they're kind of hitting a moving target here.
Now, keep in mind, you can send emails to individual senators if you prefer. Mm-hmm. It won't be part of the official record at the hearing, right, but you can sure email any and all senators. That is always your right, and you can do that anytime you want.
Mm-hmm. And I would say this online submission thing will also help the count. So it's really important to remember that when it comes down to simplicity, they're going to count the number of proponents and the number of opponents. And obviously any educational communication is educational in itself, but when it comes to really truly, feeling the pulse of Nebraskans, it's the numbers. And so if all the numbers are coming through one conduit, makes it easy to count. And I'll tell you, last year, the amount of responses NFOA members gave to the multiple hearings that we were held, it was really, really impressive, the ratio or percentage of those who are in favor of bills that we supported versus against. So taking those 5 and 10 minutes to craft less than 500 words, just simply saying I'm in support of constitutional carry because it is my constitutional right, is enough. So we don't have to be so verbose, and swing from an emotional perspective trying to persuade. NFOA is going to be doing a good job with submitting our testimony as well as presenting testimony at the hearing. We're obviously been working really hard behind the scenes from an educational perspective so that no one can say they didn't support this bill because they didn't understand it.
Right. That's one of the reasons we're doing this tonight, is so those of you that have questions can get those asked. And then you can share this. Please share the link with everybody so that we can get the word out too, that this is the new process. If you can't make it to Lincoln, to use that comment portal, and to get the information spread as far and wide across Nebraska as we can. And remember, 91 out of 93 counties have put in place 2A sanctuary measures. It's clear that Nebraska wants our gun rights protected. We don't want anybody messing with that. And you guys did that work. All we did was we helped spread the word. We were cheering you on from the sidelines. Dick did a lot of work because those maps that we kept posting every couple days, Dick is the one who made those maps and colored each county yellow or green as it were. But Trish and I were mostly just helping to keep the posts flowing and the information flowing. You guys did that yourselves. And if you're willing to go to that much work just to keep outside entities from coming in and messing with your rights, then how much more work are you willing to do to help pass this bill? Because all we need is a little bit of effort from each and every one of you. You don't have to do any huge thing. If enough people do one little thing, it's a big, big movement.
Right. I got a great question from DJ Play Nice about NFOA's efforts for education on constitutional carry. This has been multiple years. So constitutional carry isn't a new thing. We've been pursuing constitutional carry, since I began to be a board member, and I've been on the board since 2014. So we've been working on it very long and hard. The last 2 years, though, it's been a priority bill from our membership survey that we did. And we have done town halls, both online and in person across the state, at our annual meeting, at all the gun conferences and gun shows and community events where we're doing recruiting booths, obviously through our newsletter, on our Facebook, and our member forum. So additionally, this year, the NFOA board, the last 5 months actually have been extremely busy actually connecting with other grassroots organizations where the Second Amendment isn't their primary focus, but the Second Amendment is in alignment with that grassroots organizational mission and vision. And so myself, John, Jim, and other board members have actually gone to meetings and conferences and have had chats with these other groups from an educational perspective, so that message can also be spread out to their members. So we've gone well beyond the almost 30,000 followers of NFOA into as many other grassroots organizations as we can. So it's been quite a strategic and tactical effort, a lot of behind the scenes work, which we have found to be actually the best way to do it. Making those connections and those personal relationships have paid off significantly.
Yeah. And, what I was emphasizing about getting stuff in front of the committee, please don't take that to be discouragement about contacting your senator directly. And certainly your senator can see those comments if they go looking for them, but the emails directly to the senator, even if they're not on the committee, just saying, hey, I know this is still in committee, but once you get a chance to vote for this bill, I sure hope you'll consider it. Things like that to prep the battlefield, so to speak. I promise you, the anti-gun people are already working this bill, and there's already emails going to senators saying, stop this madness, blood will flow in the streets and all this stuff. I mean, that's the kind of stuff they're getting right now from the crowd that gave them bloody Barbie dolls one time. And, it's just, like I say, the other side doesn't have much in the way of decorum, to borrow a word from somebody who was talking about that in the comments earlier. But they fire for effect, you know what I mean? And so I think we have the better evidence. We think we got the better manners, and I think we've got the better numbers, and we should show all three of those things. So.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's not too late either for more senators to sign on as co-sponsors of the bill, correct? So if everybody wanted to reach out to your respective senators in your district where you live, and not just where you live, you might live in one district and work in another. You might own land, or your family has land in another district, or you have a hunting lease or something like that. You may have a vested interest in multiple districts in Nebraska. So you could reach out to each of those senators and say that you are a part of their district in some way, whether you live there, work there, whatever is the case, play there, and ask them to help support the bill and consider being a co-sponsor, because the more co-sponsors a bill has, the more traction it can gain too.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. There is one question I see over here in the comments about the effect of this in Lincoln and Omaha, this bill. This is a statewide bill. It would not allow the cities to outright prohibit the concealed carrying of firearms by legal gun owners. Now, this is not total preemption. It doesn't totally get rid of all possible local gun ordinances that wouldn't prevent you from carrying a concealed weapon. So, for example, I think that the registration ordinance for non-permit holders would probably still be intact after this. You'd still have to register as a non-permit holder, and there's some other things. under the local ordinances that would still apply. The Lincoln city ordinance is making people prohibited persons. Probably those are still in effect. And so it's not total preemption like what we had proposed in LB 68 or LB 289 a few years back. But for you couldn't pass an outright ban on permitless concealed carry in your municipality if this law is on the books. So there is some preemption element in this.
All right. And I see a few more people are joining us as we go. If you're joining us late, yes, this will be available on replay. And I would encourage all of you who joined late to watch the beginning, especially where Dick put up on the screen the process to do the new comment portal, because you can't mail in or email in statements this year.
Yeah.
And that's all explained at the beginning. So rather than go back over it now, just catch this on the replay and get that information firsthand there. Excuse me. All right. I think we are pretty well caught up with most of the comments, most of the questions. Again, the hearing is 1 week from today, January 20th, 1:30 p.m. in the Judiciary Committee room.
Yeah.
Which is, if you're not sure where that is, go into the help desk in the middle of the building, and the nice folks there will direct you.
That's right.
At 1:30.
1:30 p.m.
Room. Yep.
And if you're not super early, you'll probably be able to see where it's at without asking for directions, I'm guessing.
Yeah. Follow the crowds.
But no, and I tell you, as somebody who gets to work in the Capitol, I love working in that building, and not just because it was built without any public borrowing as a monument to fiscal responsibility, but it's a beautiful place, and hopefully it's something that when the senators go to work there, they take their job a little more serious because of that environment. But it's kind of fun to take a day trip to the Capitol, even if it's to, ask for a right that you shouldn't have to ask for.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Yep.
Another great point too, if you have questions that arise that we didn't get to answer tonight, or you're watching a replay, please forward your questions to info@nebraskafirearms.org. The board members receive that, especially if we have questions that we need to research for you. That gives us some time to answer. Makes it challenging sometimes on an online town hall to answer quickly, or maybe not as thoroughly as we'd like to when you guys have questions. So feel free to email us at info@nebraskafirearms.org. If you have questions about preparing for the hearing, if you want to have somebody take a look at your testimony or your message that you'd like to submit for this bill, we're not wordsmiths in the sense of formal, English teacher educators or whatever, but we've obviously been in the representation business for a long time. We've worked in so many different committee hearings, and helping you feel comfortable and prepared. That's really probably the most important thing, because they want to hear your voice. We're the voice of Nebraska firearm owners in the sense that we represent so many thousands of Nebraskans, and we do speak and testify, but each of our individual messages are so important. And so we really want to encourage you to send in your position on this bill to make sure that your voices are heard.
Yeah. One more question that I saw in the comments from Sheila Walker. Sheila, the default rule is that a law takes effect in Nebraska 3 calendar months after the legislature adjourns. Now, sometimes a bill will have what's called an E clause or an emergency clause on it that can designate an earlier date. And sometimes there are delayed effective dates. This bill doesn't have either of those modifications to the default rule, so it would take effect 3 calendar months after the adjournment of the legislature, which will be in mid-April. So 3 months from there, we're talking mid-July.
All right. Okay, I think with that, we will go ahead and wrap things up. One more time, for those of you who are joining us late, our guest has been Dick Clark, and Dick is an attorney in Lincoln with Dick Clark Law, his private practice. He also works in the Capitol building in Senator Brewer's office for the Government, Military, and Veterans Affairs Committee as legal counsel. Is that right? And you are the one who drafted this bill, LB 773. and help to write this and make it what it is. So thank you very much, Dick, for all of your hard work year in and year out, not only on this bill, but for NFOA and for all of Nebraska and all of our rights. We appreciate everything that you do. I know that sometimes volunteerism is a very thankless job, so we definitely want to recognize you and your hard work and appreciate all of that. And
Well,
you know that we appreciate you.
Thanks, Senator Brewer, for using his ability. He develops wonderful relationships in the building, even with people who don't agree with him, and he is really using all of his powers and all of his persuasiveness to advance this bill. So I gotta, I'm grateful for the thanks, and I like to play in this sandbox, but he's the reason that we're able to say this is a real go at constitutional carry in Nebraska. So
I've not yet had the pleasure to meet Senator Brewer. So hopefully
all right, well,
everything works. Hopefully I'll be there Thursday and I'll get to meet him.
Oh, he's a fun guy, and he's a great boss as long as you don't have to have the best stories in the office.
Good to know. All right. Trish, thank you very much. Anything that we need to mention as far as LB 773? And then we've got some stuff going on this weekend as well.
That's right. So again, this is our priority bill. We're absolutely thrilled to be in support of it, and we're working hard to get it passed. And we hope to see you all at the hearing. Additionally, this weekend, barring the weather. So one of the things that we have concerns is members of our board and volunteers have signed up to attend the Nebraska Deer and Game Expo this weekend, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday in Lincoln. And literally on the day of it, we find out that the weather's coming again. So every time we have these big events that we've been planning to attend for months, a big snowstorm comes. So we're hoping to have our volunteers there on Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, but we don't expect people to travel if it's not safe. So I would assume, given the weather forecast, that Saturday is a fairly good day to come visit us at the Nebraska Deer and Game Expo, and of course Sunday to meet members of the board, meet other members of NFOA, find out what we're doing. If you're not yet a member of Nebraska Firearm Owners Association, it'd be a great opportunity to learn more about us and what we do. I'll put our pitch out now. Membership in our organization is free. We are literally one of the largest grassroots organizations representing citizens just like you and advocating for our Second Amendment rights. So it'd be lovely to see you this weekend.
Yeah. And I like to point out that as board members, we get to keep everything that you pay for membership dues. That's what we get paid out of. So
I have to laugh, Joe. Jack, yes, the after party at my farm. No, we actually might have something fun planned for after the hearing. Casually, we like to get together and chat with all of our supporters. So if you're there at the hearing and you're there at the end of it, I got the night off from work. And so, yeah, we'll probably get together and chat. So, but the location is secret until you meet us, because it's like, we don't want the other people to show up.
Right. We're not broadcasting that. Please don't dox it. All right. And yes, please come out if you can and the weather allows to the Nebraska Deer and Game Expo Lancaster Event Center this weekend. Lord willing, and my voice clears up and travel works on Friday. I should be there Saturday and Sunday to meet and greet everybody. And I think, Trish, you're going to be there Friday and Sunday, maybe?
God willing.
We'll see what the weather does.
Yeah.
But look for us there. And if you have more questions about LB 773, we would love to speak more with you then as well when we have a little bit more time. Mm-hmm. So, all right. On behalf of Trish and on behalf of Dick, we would like to thank all of you for joining us tonight. Please share this, whether you're watching on Facebook or YouTube. Please hit that share link, send it out to everybody, send it in personal messages, emails, whatever you need to do to get it out to everybody. But please help us spread the word. We can't do this without you. But looking at that 2A Sanctuary County map, it's amazing what we can do if we all pull together. So please help us get this done. And if you have more questions, again, email info@nebraskafirearms.org. That is on the crawl going across the bottom of the screen. It has been, I think, the whole broadcast. So direct any questions there, and we'll hope to see you in person Thursday, January 20th, 1:30 p.m., Judiciary Committee Room in Lincoln in the Capitol. Thanks, guys. We love you. We'll talk to you later.
Have a good night, guys.